All right.
Well, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the September meeting of the Davis Police Accountability Commission. I hope everyone had a good recess over the past month. I'll go ahead. Oh, I already called the meeting to order. Does anyone want to make a motion for approval of tonight's agenda? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? All right, agenda approved. Brief announcements from staff.
Right, so I have two. One, on Friday afternoon, Commissioner Myers resigned from the commission. He has signed up for a course that he's taking that is on Monday nights.
Oh.
And that obviously conflicts with this for the foreseeable future. So he steps down, which means that Commissioner Wilson is one of the shortest lived alternates, in the history of the commission, I think. So
Yeah.
he is a full regular member, effective immediately.
Oh, is that what, 1 month?
Yeah, one meeting.
One meeting.
One meeting, right?
So, just wanted to make sure that everybody was fully aware of that. You'll see, John's name is still on the agenda and everything else, but we'll update all that information the next go around. The second item is one that I'll bring up now, and you guys can decide if you want to bring it up again in long range. And it's a question about, so we have, well, back up. The Supreme Court issued a ruling in late June. So not really in time for us for our July meeting, but issued a ruling that changed, the parameters of what's allowed for unsheltered individuals.
California or federal?
Federal.
Which,
So sorry. The
State.
Thank you. State.
California Supreme Court.
Yes, thank you. So it changes what was called the grant pass ruling, which is an Oregon city. And it says that municipalities, counties, other jurisdictions do have the ability to remove people who are unsheltered from public spaces if they so choose. Previously, they were only allowed to be removed if there was shelter space for them to go to.
By the way, that was the U.S. Supreme Court did the grants pass.
U.S. Supreme Court did the grant pass.
Right.
But, so that then begs the question of what is Davis doing and what is happening here in the community. It crosses over with this commission via the law enforcement. And where law enforcement may be called in or somehow interacting. There was a question or a request from Chairman Horton to put on an agenda, a discussion on that particular topic. So we didn't put it on for this evening just because of timing. But if that is something that is of interest to the commission, we can put it on a future agenda. Dylan, I don't know if you want to say anything else or if that kind of accurately captures what you were trying to get at.
yeah, I think that covers it mostly. It was just, I had heard, as I described to Kelly, a number of concerns, from people about public safety in terms of unhoused residents, about the persistent complaints from business owners downtown about that situation. So yeah, I thought it would be good. And then more recently, a person had reached out to me again with some public safety concerns about unhoused folks. But also, concerned about, well, hey, didn't we do all that stuff to reform public safety systems a couple of years ago? And so what is, are we still operating under the same sort of, PD first sort of response to homeless services? So yeah, that's, I think that was the general flavor of the feedback that I was getting from folks. And so it seemed like it might be good for us to.
Yeah, I actually had a community member reach out to me who is a small business person downtown. And she said that she had been basically directed to police rather than the social services department. So she needed clarification and wanted to know how we fit into that. So
yeah, think about how, when we get to the long range at the end of the meeting, how we want to shape that, what kind of item we want that to look like at a future meeting so that we can, dig into addressing that.
And if you're if you decide that you're interested in talking about that, what I'll do is go through, so there are some policies or procedures that the police department has specific to unsheltered individuals. Other policies, the fact that they're unsheltered is irrelevant. You know, they're committing another crime or something like that. The fact that they're unsheltered is not particularly relevant. But if you're interested, then we'll share that information so you can, you know, prep before discussion and see what questions you
How about having somebody from the new social services? Ms. Bailey, perhaps, or
may. I mean,
the homeless coordinator?
we can talk about it during long
Okay.
range, but you know, you can have social services and law enforcement, because really what you're focusing on is that law enforcement intersection. So, but to be able to do that, you need to understand, you know, what social services is doing.
Other announcements? Well, you just said those two, right?
I think I just had those two.
Okay, all right, cool. Commissioner announcements.
Sorry, I was
Yeah.
at the supervisor's, building.
Oh,
No.
Commissioner announcements. Okay, y'all know I usually take these for observances, and we were very lacking in observances at our last meeting in July. We have a couple this month, of course. We just had Labor Day last month, which is of course why we're meeting today in a different location. You know, we've discussed here in this commission a number of, I think, the workforce and labor concerns relative to police in town. You know, one of the big goals of, you know, many police reform movements is trying to get more officers to live in the community you know, that they're policing. Obviously, there's a whole lot of dynamics that are at play that, you know, make that difficult. I think continuing to put some attention to, you know, how we're rewarding officers that are or, you know, praising officers that are, you know, conducting their duties appropriately, you know, all those kind of, I think, workforce, HR concerns, I think, are things that I think we should continue to put our attention toward. Next week on the 10th, we have a World Suicide Prevention Day. You know, I had a coworker this morning who had to leave work because a person close to them had committed suicide over the weekend. And it just sort of highlighted for me, you know, how much we really have to, you know, not take any of that kind of stuff for granted. We know people suffer silently. And so making sure that we're reaching out to folks and not, you know, leaving people in darkness alone is, I think, an important thing in terms of the community's public safety.
September is traditionally Suicide Prevention Month too. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, suicides typically touch 36 people close to them and probably over 100 in their networks. So they really. Yeah.
And then, of course, right after that, we have September 11th, the 23rd anniversary of that day, where, of course, a great many firefighters, police officers, and other, you know, first responders and public safety professionals lost their lives that day, rescuing people from the towers and the other sites that were attacked. And so, you know, obviously the mantra is never forget, you know, that sacrifice and that service. And I think that's an important thing to commemorate here at this commission. Any further commissioner announcements? I heard that our council liaison, Councilmember Partita, has another commitment, so she won't be with us this evening. So no council liaison announcements. Taking us to public comment. This is public comment on non-agenda items. If you wanted to address the commission on anything that was not later on our agenda or couldn't stay for one of those things later on our agenda, this would be the time. I'll open up now for general public comment. But if not, we can go on to consent calendar. My usual joke about our very lengthy consent calendar. Does anyone want to make a motion for approval of the July agenda? Oh, sorry, July minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right. Police auditor update. We have our very able Mr. Connolly filling in for Mike. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair, for that encouraging introduction, and greetings to everybody from Long Beach, California, where we were actually competing with you today in the temperature sweepstakes. So it's not usually like that around here, and it made me more sympathetic to what the summer's like in Davis on a more regular basis. So Mike and I were last in town, in person back in June to talk about the recruiting and hiring audit. And since that time, in terms of new business on our end, we have not had any additional complaint cases alleging police misconduct in our pipeline. So we are all caught up, and as far as we know, in terms of the department's complaint process. Mike is actually traveling out of the country this evening, but we certainly wanted to sit in on the meeting tonight and really just kind of follow up in terms of some of the agenda items that are up ahead. Certainly very interested in how the October 16th community meeting is going to look. And then we're very interested in any follow-up to the recruiting hiring audit with regard to a potential role for your commission. And again, if there's anything we can do to facilitate as you move forward with that process. So thank you again for having me in this kind of clunky technological fashion, but I'm very happy to be here and see everybody and looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, thank you. And this reminds me of something that I forgot to mention in announcements. Commissioner Escamilla Greenwald and I had a meeting with PD leadership in the time between this meeting and the last meeting. I can't really remember when that was, but it was myself and Commissioner Escamilla Greenwald, as I said, with Chief Pytel, Deputy Chief Henry, and goodness, I always forget the last name of the person who supervises the non-sworn. Yes,
Yeah.
there we go. So yeah, I was meeting with the three of them. And I was reminded, Sean, given what you were just talking about, because we talked a little bit about the hiring audit. It was just sort of what was, what had been the police topics of the past couple of months. And particularly I wanted to get, because Mike and Sean, reflected to us, hey, the PD is interested in, this recommendation that they had about getting like a list of ideal characteristics. I forgot exactly what the language is we were using for hiring of officers. And though not to say that I didn't believe you or Mike when y'all said that, I just wanted to hear directly from PD leadership that was something that they wanted, and we're going to engage with once we spend some time getting that to them. I think a good chunk of the purpose of the meeting was to just discuss any thoughts that they had with regard to the FRT draft ordinance recommendation. And then also we talked a little bit about the outreach. Sean, or comments about his report?
Yeah, Sean, Robert Canning here. I brought this up to the chief, I don't know, a year or so ago about the tool. I don't remember if you brought that into the report or not, but I brought it up with the chief because there doesn't seem to be any good scientific evidence that it makes much difference, that it's helpful. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that in terms of hiring. They do the usual extremely intense psychological evaluation by a psychologist, and it seems, I'm not sure why they still use it, but he indicated that he wanted to.
So yeah, we work with agencies that use it and agencies that don't, and we don't have a strong opinion about the value of it. We certainly recognize your point about some of the qualms that people have about it and the scientific unreliability and questions about it in that respect. But I would be inclined to agree with you that the psychological background evaluation is probably the key in coordination with everything else that's just kind of automatically done. And to me, it's a little bit telling that Post, the sort of Sacramento statewide agency that regulates this stuff, they leave that piece of it up to the agencies, whereas other elements are required. So to me, there's something a little bit interesting and telling about that. But I certainly don't think it's counterproductive. It's just a question of how much value added it is.
Thank you.
I have a question. Okay, so you're saying that Davis Police Department does do that?
My understanding is that it's an option that they still have on the table for, when they interview candidates.
But we don't know if they're using it.
My impression was that they did use some, but you know, on a case-by-case basis, probably. I don't know what goes into the decision-making process about when to use it, when not to, which is, that's sort of the important piece is, you know, why now? Especially when it doesn't seem to have any added value, it says.
Any additional questions? I don't know why I kept saying Sean earlier. Steven, sorry.
Oh, no problem at all.
Okay, I'll open up to a public comment on the auditor's report. If there are none, we'll go back to the commission. Any final comments, questions? All right, moving on to, thank you. Moving on to item 7A, which is the discussion of our outreach event. So, you know, over the I think time period between this meeting and the last one, we sort of finalized the date, right? What you see here on the agenda, if you have it in front of you, as October the 16th, which is a Wednesday. It'll be at the Veterans Memorial Center. So right, in my mind, like right in the corner. Again, in Davis, it's a good distance from here. But you know, we've had some of our previous outreach events there before. Again, you know, as it's outlined here in the agenda, the idea, I think largely from Vice Chair Griswold's suggestion was that we have the sort of theme of this year's outreach event be sort of the various non-armed public safety resources that are available in the community. And, you know, also I think in our last couple of discussions of this, the thought was that we wanted, you know, this to be more of like a resource fair style event than something that was a more kind of quasi lecture based event that some of our previous outreach events had been. But as I think some people have known, I can't really recall where, that's like 15 minutes from now, October the 16th. And so I want to, well, first of all, before I get into that, I think it's appropriate that Sia just walked in a second ago. She had some suggestions for some of the organizations or you know, some of those resources that could be a part of the resource fair. And as I try to find my document with my notes on that.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
If you don't mind me mentioning, because I know that when we met with the chief, we were talking about various resources we wanted to have available. And I recall that one of them might take me a second here. The group that does outreach to battered women and men.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, how we know, yeah. We wanted to definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, so that was one of the ones that we did talk about with PD leadership. So
And the food bank also, Yellow Food Bank.
right, yes. So let me just read through
Okay.
some of these that I have here. And some of these were brought up, I think, you know, in like
Yeah,
you said, in some of those
previously.
sessions. So I have you know, of course, this is not necessarily public safety is a broad thing, right? You know, and so Davis Community Meals, I think was a possibility in terms of particularly their contact with unhoused folks in our community, which we've, I think, discussed earlier in this meeting, our remaining vulnerable population. Namiolo does a variety of different programs and resources in the community with folks dealing with mental health crises. You know, I always sort of think about our public safety here in the city as sort of dually managed by, of course, PD, which is where we first think of when we think of public safety, but also our fire department as well, in terms of more the kind of more medical kind of response to safety issues in Davis. There is, let's see.
State short-term emergency.
State, yeah.
Yes, state.
Actually, it's that one. Make sure I don't forget anything. Oh, and then there's the YOLO Community Care Continuum. And then Empower YOLO, as you mentioned, Commissioner Escamilla Greenwald. Other suggestions for?
YOLO help engagement.
Oh, yes, see, there we go. That's why we do these things as a group. I'm not sure how I forgot about that.
Yes, I sent an email to Robert with a number of my ideas like a couple months ago. So I don't know if y'all were working from that list.
I have not done anything.
Can you
Okay.
list off some of those?
I will-
YOLO HHS should be on the list. Because they provide a tremendous amount of services to people. And they're sort of moving incrementally towards crisis now. Well,
That's
it-
Health and Human Services Agency.
yeah, HHS, Health and Human Services, YOLO.
Emphasis on incrementally moving.
Yeah.
Someone
Slowly,
like communicator.
slowly but surely,
Mhm.
communicate.
Yeah, I think sorry, I might have skipped over that on my list here. Yes.
So the things that I had sent to Robert earlier were, Crisis Now, co-responders through NAMI. And then some outside groups that aren't necessarily working here in Davis, but that are like models for, being able to have alternatives to calling the police, like, one called CAHOOTS. They're actually, it's an acronym for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. An organization, Mental Health First Aid, that does trainings for people, for regular people to respond in a mental health emergency instead of calling in armed police.
That second group, what is it based?
All over the place.
Okay.
Like, we had a training at my church a couple of years ago. Yeah. So I think, to me, like, I think it's a moment right now to think like conceptually. Is it a resource fair that's more about, hey, do you need resources in Davis? Do you need food? Do you need housing? Or is it a resource fair that presents things that are like alternatives to calling the police? Because to me, those are two different things. And it's like.
I think it
my
can be
original-
both. I think it can be both. I don't think that's.
So if I could jump in,
Mhm.
we have to be careful not to encroach on the Social Services Commission. and what they do.
Um,
Yeah.
We really want to keep this tied in some way to the role of, oversight for law enforcement, accountability for law enforcement, et cetera. So we just keep that in mind.
Can you tell us if any of the ones we've mentioned step on those toes?
Any one of them could, but it's, I think, how we present and put it together and, what the, kind of what the theme is, if there's a speaker or anything like that. So we just want to be careful that it's not just a social services fair, because that's not quite what you're.
Right.
I
And
think,
these are all, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think, a part of this is, what part of, of these programs are we highlighting? With something like NAMI, for instance, they do a whole bunch of different kind of stuff. And so, I think it could venture into something that's more appropriate for the Social Services Commission, depending on sort of what we're highlighting in some of these organizations programs.
Right, sure, but we've had presentations, public comment and presentations where people have mentioned about how, in their perception, the police have or have not responded in the best manner to people going through a mental health crisis. So that's where I see NAMI, I think, or something similar, being a good fit for this event,
I mean, I regularly.
whether it's NAMI. or
Right, yeah. Mhm.
So is there a title for the event? Like, is this safety in Davis or something that things would fit in? I mean, should there be some kind of
A
title?
working title. Well, number one, no, it's the answer. In terms of like, we don't have, do we have one? Right, yeah.
But how direct?
Yeah,
Right.
if you had, if there was a speaker or something that was gonna kind of draw these things together and note, that would help. It'd probably be good to have somebody from our social services department there, so they could talk about what it is that they do.
We can collaborate with someone.
Perhaps
whether
whether
we
the-
could talk
have
about instead, what the police, all the different areas police are involved in, and
Yeah.
how they want to present this as alternatives to calling the police for any safety issues.
Yeah, I think there,
Safety alternatives.
Calling instead of calling the police, these are safety alternatives.
Who do I call if I don't call? Yeah.
I mean, what are
Yeah.
alternatives to calling the police?
Well, I think that goes back to Elizabeth's
Right.
point earlier of, is this
You
more?
can't call steak instead of the police, like, the police don't offer food, steak offers food, like, that's totally different. And it's an amazing organization, I donate to them all the time. But I think you're right in that, like, maybe a title that we can kind of keep reminding ourselves will keep us a little more like on point for our commissions.
And support things that others might not necessarily think
Uh-huh.
fit because we could say it fits.
Now, I
Right.
would have to say right now, since it doesn't sound like we have a title, doesn't sound like you've got anyone committed to coming here. I'm real concerned on the 16th. We should be having stuff out. News to people, save the
Yeah,
dates
and
and this kind of thing. So maybe we need to push it to early November. I think we're way behind.
There may be some other focuses of attention.
I'm
So the date,
Yeah.
the date was chosen simply by
I
the
know.
last conversation, and if the commission decides that mid-October, there's too much else going on, or there's not enough time, that's totally fine, we can change the date. Whatever you guys want to do, it's
Chairman.
Yes.
I actually came with the thought that we ought to push it off till spring. That was one of the thoughts I had. That would give us a lot more time to get ourselves organized. That's what I realized is that with the summer break and everything, and it's hard for people to focus sometimes. And I know it was hard for me. I actually, since I talked to Elizabeth, I haven't done anything on it. Part of the company work on responsibility, but I think I agree with Mary that we're running real short on time, and that we ought to think about putting it off, and I don't think we ought to. Early November is just, people are pulled in lots of different directions right now around this fall, so maybe we ought to put it off. until
Yeah,
spring.
the election coming up.
I'm maybe in February. There's not much going on in February.
So-
Like that.
Right, yeah, no, I hear you. So what I would point out is, one, I think we're kind of always behind the 8 ball of our outreach events. That's, I think, not to say that's good or acceptable, but that's just kind of a persistent problem in us planning these each year.
No, I think we had stuff out by this time last year, a month ahead. We had stuff all out and the stuff done by the city staff.
Right, I'm not saying that this is the same, as anything, yeah, right. So, yeah, that's the one thing I think, this year is certainly different than, any previous year, in terms of us planning this,
But,
the other thing I would note is, I think when we're not prepared, pushing the deadline out is obviously an easy way to address that. And it's a thing that we can't just kind of continue. And so that's one of I'm always kind of concerned about a delay. I don't know. So yeah, that's what I'm not saying that we're not behind the 8 ball.
It's way too short a time to have people commit to coming and having things organized.
Mhm.
I think that's my biggest thing. If we were just doing it and we were all standing there talking, we could do it. But you're talking about trying to get a large group of people coordinated in less than a month. And I'm just concerned about it.
Mhm.
It's difficult to do. You may get some, but you won't, I doubt if you'll get the breadth of people you're hoping to get.
and, yeah, I think getting people to attend, the community to attend, last year we had a pretty good turnout, 75 people or so. Is that right, Kelly? Yeah, in that ballpark, which is pretty good for a small event like this. And I think with the only month, I don't think we're gonna get there.
So suggestions for a new date. I heard February twice, I think.
I think February sounds good.
February sounds good.
And then we need some timelines to get things done. I mean, I just.
A particular time of February, a day of the week, are we shooting
Are you
for?
looking for the same idea where it would be like a Wednesday night or like a
Yeah.
weeknight? There's,
I would think that seems reasonable, seems to work for people.
Not have council.
There are no school holidays, PJUSD holidays in February that I
Wow.
can see,
President's
except President's Day is the only one.
President's Day on the 7th.
Yeah, that's.
We are not meeting Friday, February 14th.
No, I said it's Wet Friday.
No.
Valentine's Day on a Wednesday.
So Wednesday, February 12th, 19th, 26th.
25,
25th is a Tuesday. What do you think of the 12th, Wednesday, the 12th of February?
I think it's reasonable.
Sure.
I can't guarantee anything
Right.
now. If the commission is interested in trying to move to February, then I can see what, you know,
Is
what's
available.
available. If what you're looking for, again, is the same sort of thing where it's a weekday evening at the vets.
It has to be the 12th or the 26th. We have a City of Davis, school board 2x2 on the 19th
On
at
the
City
19th.
Hall. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm just saying.
so the
Wednesday.
12th to the 26th.
Yeah, 12th or 26th.
And I have plans for the 26th, if that, I'm only one person.
There you go. Looks like the 12th.
Well,
I think that's our top choice, and then Kelly will see.
yeah.
What's available.
Thank you, Kelly.
I anticipate we might have a public comment here, so I'll open up to, a public comment on this item, or maybe I'm wrong. And then if not, we can move back to, commission discussion. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's some possible resources, public guardian, resources for independent living, and Meals on Wheels. Those are all good choices. Resources for independent living is for people who are disabled. And they can help you stay in your house and things like that with grant money that they give. And then the public guardian is, will take care of people who cannot take care of themselves, either because of mental illness or other reasons like medical disability. So those are all safety issues.
Thank you. Any other,
What was the one? Ms. Munster, what was the resources for?
Independent living.
Thank you.
Sherry
RIL.
Schroeder is involved with that. And I was gonna add, thank you for those suggestions. Those are excellent. Those are related to us, because oftentimes there's people that, how do we say this, end up in police presence with these issues, related issues. So earlier when Kelly made the comments, and I agree about social services, it's like it overlaps. So we may want to reach out to them, since we have this additional time, we can, collaborate with them somehow. Or have.
Them
somebody
meaning the Social Services Commission?
speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, social services.
I'm gonna suggest if it's okay, that I just talk with Dana Bailey, who's the director for the Social Services Department, and bring her into the loop on this.
That's a good idea.
Who's the chair of the Social Services Commission?
Right now, the chair is Rachel Fulcook.
yes, that's correct. That is correct.
Would it be appropriate to reach out to her?
It would be better if I went through Dana. But if you want to talk to another commissioner, you are more than welcome to do that. It just starts getting weird when we're pairing up commissions.
I was just going to put out that I forgot to write on the list that the suicide prevention for ULB would also be great, rather than calling police during a mental health emergency, suicide hotlines are made for that reason, which kind of coincides with the thing.
I have a question. I don't know if we've given thought, I don't think we've talked about it, but do we want to include a student group or some students from student government? We work so closely, meaning that there's oftentimes students that encounter police over certain issues that we're talking about here. I wonder,
Perhaps someone from the PAB,
Okay.
get UC Davis Police Accountability Board.
yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, I knew there was somebody somewhere, I just didn't know which
Yeah.
group.
In addition to that, I'm not totally sure if this is possible, but Safe Guide might be a really good resource to put out there because it's kind of a free Uber situation, which, you know, better than having to pay or having to walk home or call whatever it is. There's also some, I forget what the student permit is, but you can call them when you're walking home. I think Free Ride also, or Safe Ride also offers that, where you can call someone and they're on the line with you while you get wherever you need to.
Mind telling me your name?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Sia, S-I.
Thank you.
Another resource you might try is Adult Protective Services. That's a county service.
I know, a couple of months ago, we had a meeting where someone came to the commission. Y'all probably recall, we had to pause the meeting, for a little bit, you know, you know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying, hey, we haven't seen her in a really long time. You know, in terms of, what you brought up in terms of adult protective services really reminded me of how important that resource can be for some folks in our community.
Absolutely.
Okay, other thoughts, ideas, suggestions on the outreach event?
Something that might be sort of a way to create an agenda for it or something. Could be like a couple people maybe telling their own story. Like, you know, like a representative from who has been maybe served by one of these groups or reached out to them for resources. Telling the story of, you know, maybe it could be a negative story of like, oh, I really needed help of a different variety, but somebody called the police on me and then this happened. Or it could be related to mental health, it could be related to racial justice issues, don't know exactly what. And or a story of a positive situation of instead, you know, I mean, I was in a crisis, etc. But instead of police getting involved, I went to this agency and I got what I actually needed, or they really helped me in my time of need, or gosh, I didn't want to be a danger to anybody else or myself. And now that I have these resources, etc., you know, things got better, maybe even one of each, something like that. I think stories can also make things kind of come more alive for somebody. So that would be like, since we have a few months now, an opportunity to be talking, then I did bring this up before
Yeah.
too. But the idea of, talking to these organizations and maybe being able to identify a speaker or two. who
Well, I
might
think
be
we
able to
only
share.
keep it pretty short so that people can get out there, but what I'd like to see a story is they called the police. And the police came and referred me to people to help rather than it was a bad police outcome because they got called.
I
Because-
disagree, but I hear you.
No,
Okay.
I just think, you know, we're here as, we're trying to show alternatives, but I hate to think the police is not doing well when they've worked really hard and I think they do a very good job.
Mm.
So.
They refer people to.
And they
these
refer
different
people all the
agencies.
time, so it's just an extra, so it's an extra step. If I had known about this ahead of time, then I would have saved this step, their time
Mm.
and mine, and I would have been able to get there, and that's why we want to share. I just.
Yeah,
am
no, I
trying
hear
to-
you.
I'm
I
just
think,
trying,
yeah.
because there are lots of people like that too,
Sure.
that we have.
So
Um,
then the thrust would not be alternatives to calling the police. It would be more about resourcing the police.
I don't think the alternative to calling the police is because the police outcomes are bad.
Oh,
It's
see, we
the-
have a disagreement.
Yeah.
But go on.
Yes.
Because I think we've been told over the past years now, and when we did our mental health audit, they were outstanding. So there are occasions when they are bad, but we have a lot more when they've been good.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're trying to show there are alternatives, not because this is necessarily bad, but it takes up time, resources, and will delay you getting the help you need when you could go right to the resource.
And the police are referring people, even when we met with Chief, Pytel and the others, you know, they were telling us, the different organizations that they work with and refer people to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's just, yeah, like, that makes a lot of sense. By no means am I saying every police encounter is bad at all. That,
No,
that,
I'm just saying, I
No,
wouldn't
yeah.
want those to be the only, those two outcomes. I would
Yeah,
want
no,
to have
absolutely.
something That shows a little bit more about how we're here so that people know and understand how they can deal directly with the people who can help them.
Mhm. I think if I can have a chance now.
Sure.
I think what I was also trying to lift up is that one of the reasons is also that, as we all know, in the news or through personal stories, in my own life, in the life of my clients, every single day, that often unfortunately it does. Often unfortunately, even just the uniform, the gun can be very triggering for someone certainly who's had negative experiences in the past with the police, for someone who is in a mental health crisis. The arrival of police, even if they don't do anything wrong, can often be what's negative about the encounter. And I think that, as a commission that is supposed to be lifting up, keeping police accountable not even necessarily for their own actions, but for what they represent, what that does represent to different marginalized communities is an important thing for us to lift up. And I don't think our role is always to kind of be the cheerleaders, but to be, lifting up concerns of folks who have been harmed, because their voices are usually fairly marginalized. And so no, but this isn't, by no means am I even presenting the idea this event is about police are always doing the wrong thing, but more saying, hey, there's these other groups that might be great alternatives. And to kind of just keep that piece in mind. But I think in the end, we're kind of getting to the same point, is call these groups first. When needed. And that there are models in other places where people are creating like whole different, like, instead of even calling 911, like you call this another number, another organization, etc. That offers an alternative and then can connect you, to what you need.
I think it's interesting that you brought up cahoots earlier in the conversation. That was definitely a thing that, folks who were part of the temporary joint subcommittee and we're following the time for the 9 process. Well, remember, that's something that we definitely looked at in terms of trying to, going back to the very painfully incremental progress toward the crisis now model.
Been there the whole time.
Right. We're just gonna play fast and loose with public comment today.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, but I was going to also add, it's just something you made me that just like this in my mind. I'm not totally sure which department the Ola County would be under. I think it's Human and Health Services. But if there could be a bilingual speaker or someone to talk about how I'm daughter of immigrant parents. It was always hard for my parents. Sometimes during if you're getting pulled over or something else is happening with the police, it's hard for people whose English isn't their first language to communicate with them. So some type of bilingual representative would probably be very.
Yeah, I think, probably, in terms of outreaching to these groups, we want to, definitely emphasize as much sort of, as many different languages that, folks have available in their materials. I know, at least with the public agencies, they're kind of required to do that in a number of cases. And, some of the better functioning nonprofits are going to do that too, even if they're not required to. So yeah, it's a good thing to, we have a lot of people in Davis, despite the fact that, we might not think about it that much, but who use some other language than English as their primary language. Go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 other resources. One is Office of Emergency Services, and that's a good one. And In-Home Supportive Services. Both of those are good ones.
I was gonna mention that second one.
Julian, what agencies do you work with that would be helpful in your work?
Oh, goodness, I don't know how, well,
Crisis nursery would be a good resource.
well, we have CWS, Adult Protective Services was mentioned, I work a lot with Child Welfare Services in Solano County. And so I don't even know if the Child Welfare Agency here is in Yolo County, the town.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's CPS, okay. It's just they use a W in, or, welfare in Solano for whatever reason, but I'm not sure what the acronym is sometimes, but yeah.
Child Protective Services.
Right. So that would be a good one, as well. And then, there is a, Child Abuse Prevention Council in Solano County that we in CASA, work with a lot. I don't know if a similar body exists here in Yolo County. I suspect that it would. But if there is some sort of, you know, because the council in Solano County is, as you might expect, is a sort of a coalition of a number of organizations that are all involved in either, you know, public safety or childcare or something like that. And so they're, you know, collaborating together for that. Other, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up, there was a series of emails to the commission earlier this summer that involved domestic violence. And, you know, all these agencies sort of, it's like, is there one there isn't one agency, but it's a huge police issue because they get called and it's dangerous for them, dangerous for the callers often that they, so I don't know if there's a particular agency that would be helpful in that area.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Consider
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yellow Crisis, Nursery Nelson.
And I regularly bring up at these meetings the incident that we had in North Vegas a couple of years ago in the winter, I had someone bring that up to me on the phone, the folks who live in North Vegas, me and Mary still, remember that and, and are, concerned about what is available to folks. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forget
You know
what.
about the Asian
The lethal use of force. Yeah, the police involved shooting that happened.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
I forget, people have different.
2 years ago.
Right, yes. Pack speak, apologies. Anyway, other suggestions, we got a lot, now a really good, crop of, resources to reach out to, Tom.
I have an idea. Now that we've given ourselves a little more time to work, maybe we could conduct some kind of a survey, publicize, get some stuff online and ask people. It's a good way also to build up interest in the event and kind of recruit people into the planning, would be to conduct a kind of open survey where people could submit ideas for content in the meeting or questions that they would like to have dealt with without their necessarily feeling that they have to suggest who or from what particular department or source the answer would come, but just any law enforcement related questions. Let them know that the Police Accountability Commission is developing an agenda and a program, a cast of participants for the event. Kind of allow the public to come in and get involved, just like you folks have done tonight. Very, very helpful. The more voices we hear, now that we have the time to hear them and consider them in the next couple of meetings, we'll get to the actual event. It might be of interest, and we'll have better attendance too.
This is kind of interesting, because earlier when we were talking about not being ready in October, my thought was, well, why aren't we planning for next year? I think this would be a wonderful idea if we figure out how to do this, if this be a plan, so that that's kind of already planned of what we'd be looking for, is what the community would like.
Yes, that was kind of along the lines of what I was thinking, that, it's. I feel like we're driving down, at least in a certain direction in terms of what the theme for this, this iteration of the outreach event, I won't say this year, so it'll be in February. But this would be, I think, a good, a way for us to start, getting the ball rolling, and so we don't find ourselves in this position next fall. But as both of y'all were talking, it brought a question to mind. Kelly, I know that there's folks who are signed up for the city council listserv, the various other commission listservs, including hours, and they get the agendas, are the agendas the only thing that we can send via that?
So we can send anything to those folks, that relates to what they signed up for.
Okay.
So if it relates to the commission,
Mhm.
then we can send something to them. If we wanted to send them, your birthday party invitation, that would not. be-
Oh, darn.
Yeah,
Trying to
so
find a
it
way to
has-
get
it
people there
has
some
to-
kind of way.
It has to just relate to the.
Yeah.
commission. So we don't use those listservs for just.
Any
anything
old
that the-
thing?
Yeah, anything the city's putting out, we only put out stuff that's specific to what they signed up for.
Okay, so we could maybe sort of come up with a question or like draft up something and have that maybe sent out to that list. I don't know how many people are on that.
Yeah, I don't know. But-
But yeah, to try to get some feedback as to what folks out, beyond our own infinite wisdom about what we think folks will want to hear about seeking their input.
It's a brilliant idea.
If we started this over the next few weeks, we could then, we would start to get feedback and response that would guide us in managing it as we proceed. To, maybe some people will bring up ideas that we haven't even thought about and we sound good. So toss them into the mix. So
Question.
build up some momentum towards the date, and especially, as mentioned earlier, we talked in previous discussions about this, about getting the university more involved. At all levels, administration, faculty, students, undergraduate, graduate, every aspect of the university has in it a lot of people who are interested in the city of Davis and what it's like to live in the city and what kind of services, what kind of security people feel. All of those questions to varying degrees. Some people come here 4 years and go away. That's it. But I've been very impressed in the 11 years that I've lived here. And particularly where I live in a senior community now, very high percent. We have, I don't know how many of you know anything about Rancho Willows, where I live. It's a senior community in East Davis at the corner of 5th Street and 4 line, directly across the street from the DMV, so get some idea of where we are. And the impression is that, first of all, you should know that we have a very high percentage of the people. It's a 55-year-old and older community in terms of age. Mostly women, of course, get up into the higher age groups. Probably 3/4 women and 1/4 men. And I would say the average age is about 70 to 75. And the degree to which people have long-term connections, I mean, in that age group, now we're talking about people who have been adults for 50 years or more. In this age group, a very remarkably high percentage of people have strong, long-term Davis associations. I have friends who have lived their entire life in Davis, and that, of course, is the exception. But people have come into Davis, gone away, come back to Davis. It has a lot to do with what their children, grandchildren do eventually. Connected with Davis and connected with the university and connected with the school system and with everything that goes on in town. So there's a very broad market out there of people who have concerns about law enforcement and security that they're not necessarily talking about every day. It's not news headlines, except unfortunately exceptional situation. But I think if we start early and if we throw the idea out early, not wait until 2 weeks before the event to start letting people know about it. We should start right away, letting people know about it and participate with us in the plan with their suggestions and ideas. The potential is enormous. We can start generating conversation.
How would we find out how many people are on the list?
I can ask, I don't know off the top of my head,
Okay.
but, one of my colleagues can get that information.
All right, what a comprehensive discussion about our outreach event. Any further items on this?
I have a quick question. So I'm assuming that the subcommittee stays in.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, that's what I forgot. So I remember when we originally put the subcommittee together and started talking about this, well, this iteration of the outreach event. I feel like Elizabeth, you were like, oh darn, I wish I was on the thing, but there's not enough space. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe not a direct quote, but it just reminds me of, and we have an opportunity to sort of reshape the committee, I think, if we wanted to, and I'll go ahead and offer, particularly given my calendar over the next, 5 weeks.
You're busy.
Just a little bit. Only the best of us get no opponents. So I can drop, and then that opens up one seat. But yeah, just wanted to sort of thank you, Kelly, because I was supposed to write a note to myself to do that, and I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyone?
No, I'd be happy to jump on.
Okay.
It will happen.
Cool. All right, so we have a new,
So it'll be Canning, Griswold, Sherman.
correct. Unless, my previous two committee colleagues.
That's fine.
Okay. Fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything further, on the outreach event? All right, off to, 7B, discuss proposed process to place tasks and items on commission agendas. I assume, Kelly might have a.
Yeah. We passed this around because we don't have screen. While it's going around, I'll just go ahead and give a brief overview. So, and there's a one-page report that's in your packet. So the subcommittee on commissions, we concluded a lot of the actual changing of commissions and realigning some of the commissions. This commission was not specifically affected. One of the things that came up throughout that process and has come up before is this ongoing question of how do commissions both communicate with council and get items of their own interest onto agendas. And it kind of differs commission to commission based on, any number of factors, the council liaison, the staff liaison, the individual commissioners, the tasks and the role of the purview of the commission. So the chart that is coming around is just a one-page attempt at trying to put on a piece of paper two things. One, the top two pieces are how things already get to commissions. Staff may bring something, or actually I think the first thing on there is council assigned tasks. So council may say, commission, we want you to look at surveillance technology. We want you to do that every year, and that's important to us. So put it on to your agenda. So that's one way council says. And that may be full council, maybe consistently. Then there are staff-driven tasks or things that might come forward. So once council gives that directive of surveillance technology, now it's on us to remember that every year we need to do that process and make sure that that gets to the commission. Then there's this section C, which is commission initiated tasks, which is not right now, as I said, clearly defined. The subcommittee was looking for an attempt to try to define it and put some parameters around it. And one of the reasons for that is to try to improve or increase communications between commission and the council, so that the commissions are working on things that the council is interested in them working on. And it's clear what resources, if necessary, are needed for a particular task or project. Those may be nothing, maybe the commission's handling everything themselves, or it may be that the commission is asking for something that requires staff resources or other resources. So they put this together, and we are taking it to all of the commissions over this month to get feedback and input. the city clerk and I are bringing all of the input back to the subcommittee, and they'll take a look at it all and decide what they want to do, if they want to bring something forward to council, or not, and what that would look like. So we've gotten some public comment, and feedback already. So I want to clarify two things that didn't make it onto this one page. I guess I need to probably do it here, paper. One is if so the proposal, sorry, I'll say that first. The proposal is for a commission initiated task, idea, project, whatever you want to call it, to be run by the council liaison and the staff liaison. And if it is okay, great, it goes on the agenda. If it's not okay for some reason,
What agenda are you talking about?
commission agenda.
Thank you.
Sorry, should have prefaced with that. Commission monthly agenda. If it's not okay, then the question would be like, can you revise it to make it something that would be appropriate? And if it's still not okay, then it either doesn't go on an agenda or the commission decides that, no, this is still important to us. We take it to the full council gets to decide if it goes on an agenda. Right now, that process is not, there isn't that process really in place. It's a much more, as I said, much more informal, and it depends commission to commission. So one of the things that was also was brought up in a public comment previously, not at this commission, but in written correspondence that you received, was timing. And we didn't put anything in here or in the little one-page report that you got about timing. The idea would be that if you brought up something at one commission meeting, that you would have an answer by the next commission meeting. Not intended that it would be something to sit on for months at a time. So that is what we're looking for feedback on. You may just have individual comments. You may have a particular position that you want to take as a full commission. That's totally up to you. Expect you'll have some public comment. But questions?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
So items that will be placed on our commission agenda would come either from the council, do your surveillance ordinance.
I just use that as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example. Would be, before they appear on the agenda, would they have to be approved by either the liaison or a subcommittee of the council?
If it's not something like the surveillance technology that I mentioned, or something that is supposed to be brought before the commission, a report or something like that, that is requiring your review, then yes, they would require some sort of thumbs up.
So in other words, if we wanted the police, if we wanted Mike to do a hiring policies review, would we have to put that to the council first before we could put it on the agenda?
That's the proposal. So something that would take staff resources or other city resources. In this case, that would take the police auditor. You'd want to say, is that topic something that the council would be interested in? So yes.
Can you use the facial recognition technology as an example when you walk us through that? Because that came from us. And we've not heard anything from anything. So how would that have worked if we had?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
The council, you have written into your authorizing resolution, surveillance technology. That's part of what.
Right, that one.
So the facial recognition technology is a specific subset of that. So it certainly falls under your purview. Whether the council is interested in talking about that, I don't know. They haven't put it on an agenda yet. So.
But it wouldn't have been one that would have had to go to them for.
Well, you'd have to, so yes, you would
Yeah.
have to, you'd say, oh, we're interested in talking about facial recognition technology. Under this proposal, you'd ask the staff liaison and the council liaison. And that council liaison, staff liaison will be looking forward to fit into your purview. Council liaison will be looking at, okay, is this something that the council is interested in hearing? And either say, yeah, great, go ahead. or would say, no, that doesn't make sense.
So it couldn't appear on our agenda.
So it wouldn't appear on your agenda. Or you would say, we're interested in pursuing this
For these reasons.
for whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever reasons. And then we would take that to the full council if you were told no otherwise, and the full council would decide.
So generally, the council would have veto power over anything appearing on our agenda. That
Not-
they didn't originate.
Or that, yes,
Or
that
that-
council or that staff didn't bring forward because it was something that. I'm trying to think of a good example for this commission as the staff would bring forward. I'm not coming up
What
with
about
one,
what
but we've
Robert
got,
mentioned initially?
Well, our first discussion when we first started about looking at the policies or whatever. it
Or the
was.
long guns perhaps, with the rifle purchase in December was that staff initiated
no, that was initiated by,
council?
yeah, by staff. Well, it
The
was,
staff.
it actually comes from the
Okay.
military ordinance.
Right.
We don't participate
Right,
in.
so would that be a good example? Okay.
But the stuff we just talked about, that we would talk about at the end of the meeting
Mhm.
today, that's not coming from the council and it's not coming from the staff per se. So would that have to go through for approval also?
Well, it's kind of coming from staff. So it could. We could say that if I said that's not really under your purview. Or does it make sense for you guys to talk about that? And I said, no, that doesn't make sense. So then the council, it would go to the full council for a review. As long as we're tying it to law enforcement, that does go to your purview, and it is something that I would say, yes, you should talk about this. It's important for you to be informed and see what questions you have and what issues that you might want to, bring to the discussion. So, but there's not specifically there's no specific request coming from the council at the moment for that.
Is this a new policy or has there been a problem?
There's not a, policy that's drafted yet. We're trying to gather input. The problem statement or the concern had been questions coming from commissioners, staff members or staff liaisons, and council members over the course of a period of time and over the course of most of the commissions, not all commissions, but not just this one. Saying, how do we put something on an agenda that we're interested in? How can we be assured that it's something council's interested in us working on? Nobody wants to waste time. We won't waste your time. Council don't waste their time. Staff just won't waste their time. So how can we do better in terms of trying to communicate the interests that commissions have, that council has, and balance those with the, the limitations of resources if resources are needed. So maybe this isn't it. Maybe there's some other way that makes sense. Maybe not. This is the information gathering. So
I have concerns for the council's time.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of all the things like a little bit of us.
Yeah.
It's sort of like,
I was
I
thinking
mean,
better things
well,
to do.
and also, I mean, commissions are sort of, well,
Advisory.
I guess I thought the commissions were in some ways able to come up with stuff that maybe the council wasn't gonna think of or hadn't thought of. And that they, in that sense, just like, oh, and this notion that somehow the council's gonna take action for every item that we come up with, we wanna put on the agenda. Well, we don't come up, I mean, look at our agendas. They're not that huge anyway, but, the facial recognition one certainly falls within the purview of the surveillance ordinance. But there may be something, like, these, the use of force audits, the hiring audit. These are things that I don't think council, nobody from council ever came and said, hey, can you ask Mike to do an audit of use of force. That comes from us and our interest in the police and accountability. And it just, I don't know, it just seems, it seems an odd process to all of a sudden put into place. And it seems that some people are unhappy with how things are going on some commissions. So let me just say that.
So I just,
To just
go ahead.
add to that, if you don't mind, that I agree with Robert, and it seems like it adds another layer of time. It's gonna take another month longer, another
Yeah.
meeting longer or two. And so that's my concern as well. Thank you.
Any clarifying? I just wanted to make sure we were finished with the questions first. But if not,
Well, I honestly, unless there's something I'm missing, I don't think this looks all that unreasonable, because basically, as long as it fits, everything is okay. We're only talking about something that we might bring up that it would be questionably inappropriate, right? Or am I missing something?
Everything.
Well, certainly if there's something that's inappropriate or questionable, then yes.
And it could go into this box.
Yeah,
right?
if there's something that takes resources as well.
Correct. Oh,
Then that,
anything,
that could
so
be,
staff resources.
could be.
Okay, then I get the fact that then you're right, it's busy work.
so what's,
Would the whole agenda be up to council?
They will see it.
Would the council have to approve
Yeah.
every month's agenda? No.
well, so, okay, I want to just overview, because I know, beyond long-range calendar, most commission members, at least in this commission, haven't participated in sort of the developing of the agenda. Traditionally in this commission, the chair and the vice chair work with the staff liaison to sort of, remember the things that people brought up in long-range calendar, trying to prioritize and triage the various items on there. Oh, well, this, we add these 3 items onto the agenda. That'll be a sort of, regularly sizable meeting. Let's not add a 4th item. I think probably the person who's participated in more of those than anybody else as our first vice chair, and then, 3 years as chair. It's, from my perspective, this has not been a problem for us.
Right.
I can maybe recognize in some other commissions, and that's not my life. But for us, that system of the chair and vice chair have a sort of either a Zoom meeting or an email exchange, or a conversation, in trying to prioritize, what's on the agenda. That seemed like that's worked for us. Unless somebody else has other reflections otherwise. As y'all can probably, folks who know me can probably expect before I even say this, yeah, I'm concerned about this. I guess in some respects for the logistical concerns that have been brought up earlier. But I think particularly for this commission, given what our specific mandate is relative to some of the other ones, having, as has been described earlier in this meeting as a veto on us having a discussion. I don't know if that works or is consistent or is a process in terms of police accountability that hasn't taken. Of course, we don't make any final decision, right? I think, right. And so the council, should they think that, whatever we've decided or discussed is a waste of time, it cannot be brought up, on the agenda or not be accepted in terms of what the recommendation is.
Except you can't go and bring it to them. That would be, if,
We can bring it to them, but they don't have to, right,
but
right.
I mean, at least, we could at least go in and say, this is why we deem this.
Right,
very important.
And
So there's an option.
right, and so I would, of course, commissions aren't independent of the city council. That's not, how all those folks are all appointed by the council, and the council makes final decisions on our recommendations. But again, not having you know, we have the power to recommend, if that's a power, you know,
Recommend to the council.
right, recommend to the council, and then after that, it's in their hands. But one of the things that we also, you know, have utilized, I think, well over the past 6 years, is deciding what we talk about. Yes, there's a whole bunch of things in terms of the outreach event that's a part of our mandate that we spent a good time discussing earlier in this meeting. Yes, there's things like the surveillance technology ordinance or the military equipment review that we do every year that are sort of you know, ministerial duty almost of the Police Accountability Commission. You know, historically, this commission has had no problem doing those things that are directed to us by, you know, our authorizing resolution, or, you know, in terms of this section A about council assigned tasks. People who were members of the commission during the time for the 9, you know, campaign will remember, you know, the council asked us, along with Human Relations Commission and Social Services, to take a look at that situation and, you know, deliver some recommendations back to the council. So we don't have any problem doing our assigned homework. But I think, you know, as was frequently a concern of mine when I was a K-12 student, being able to decide what books I'm going to read, I think is something that, you know, the commission, you know, should, particularly this commission. Now, is this as critical for maybe another commission? Again, I haven't served on those other commissions, I don't really know. But I think particularly for the Police Accountability Commission, having an ability to bring up, as Commissioner Canning brought up earlier, things that might not be the council's idea, or even if we sort of bring it to them to say, hey, is this, you know, a good use of our time and yours? I think having them render a decision about that before we've even engaged in the discussion, before we even brought the facts onto the table, again, just doesn't work for what our mission is as the Police Accountability Commission here in the city of Davis. So I would very strongly recommend that we maintain our current sort of system of developing the agendas. Yes. But let me
Go ahead, Elizabeth. I've been talking.
can I get the public comment in? Okay, yes, go ahead.
All right, my name is Elaine Roberts Musser. As Jan Carson and I have pointed out, there is a move afoot by the City Council Subcommittee on Commissions of Mayor Chapman and Councilmember Viola to micromanage and indefinitely block any commission-related proposal for any reason. Commissions would be subject to review and veto by 1 or 2 city council members. This brings up all sorts of scenarios ripe for misconduct, as described in the letter Dan and I sent you. It straitjackets commissions into being no more than rubber stamps, even though the commission handbook clearly states commissions should act independently of the city council. Further, it foments secret meetings behind closed doors, which is a clear violation of the Brown Act. A single city council member becomes a minder and shot caller of what a commission can or cannot do. A council member who may be answerable only to special interest groups who donated to their campaign coffers and got them elected. This is not looking out for the best interests of the public, nor is it good governance. This is corruption at its worst. There was a robust discussion about this new plan at the recently formed Fiscal Commission, in which 5 critical points were made. 1, commission should be receiving information from the city council on an issue in a timely manner before it has already been decided by the city council. 2, commissioners are experts in their field and may have different perspectives than the city council that the city council needs to hear, whether the city council wants to or not. Able to. 4, commissions are supposed to be looking out for the public interest, not necessarily the interests of the city council. And 5, to solve, it is far too bureaucratic. Since then, there has been an attempt to tweak this plan to get around the Brown Act problem. The following sentence was added to the staff report, and I quote, "The commission would then decide whether to modify the proposal or whether to send the proposal to the full council for consideration." End quote. This is a Band-Aid approach which does nothing to squelch secret meetings and behind closed door decision making. This plan should be scrapped as soon as possible. It's illegal and unworkable.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, taking it back to the commission,
Would this be, Kelly, question for staff, maybe also for council, is this some sort of policy that would be codified by the council? And applied to each commission,
So
written down?
it could be codified, but I don't think there was an intent to put it, to make it into like an ordinance. It would be something that would be included in the commission handbook, presumably. That would be the logical place for it to go.
I just want to follow up and then, the thing I'm most concerned about is, for instance, the audits that we've asked the independent police auditor to do. Yeah, we did mental health on 5151, we did, which nobody in the council ever, expressed an interest in. I worry that if we bring up things that the council says, oh, no, we're not interested in that. But the police commission is interested in it, and the public may be interested in it. And mental health and police and accountability all sort of go together, so. I mean, I have those sorts of questions, so it's of concern to me.
yeah, so I just briefly, because you brought up the 5150 situation, and, I'm not sure if this proposal was in effect, because y'all will remember there was concern from the city attorney and others about whether or not that was the appropriate information for us.
Well, the city attorney was just flat wrong.
Well, and so, I'm not wanting to replay that, but, I think had this policy been in place, or had this proposal been in place, excuse me, and we had to seek permission from the council, I feel quite confident that we wouldn't have received.
Yeah.
In that particular circumstance.
And what's amazing is that audit showed what a good job and good training the police in the city have when dealing with mental health crises. And so what you said is probably so. Elizabeth.
And I think everybody's bringing up very good points. I really appreciate your letter. Thank you. Around specific issues that the commission might have an interest in. But I'm even thinking about something that's just like mundane, that they're not going to, that even if this were in place, that they wouldn't actually oppose, but just how long it would take, just the process itself, it's just gonna bog everything down. And I mean, if you look on the left hand side of C, it's like, we have to come up with a request for an agenda item. And it has to be approved at a regular meeting of the commission beforehand, so we have to know at least a month in advance. Then it goes to the council, if the council subcommittee is not already established, let's assume that. Then it's reviewed by staff and council liaisons. And then even if they recommend approval, then it's sent to the city and then it comes back to us, then we're allowed to talk about it. And it's just like, there's a lot of stuff to me. I mean, if this is supposed to be a thing that's supposed to cut down wasted time, it's just adding steps and it feels really like, like it makes me feel like you're a child and we're gonna control what you guys can talk about. Like, that's just kind of weird, as opposed to like, hey, we're all adults generating ideas. We already interviewed you. We think each one of you has good ideas for this commission. Get together, talk amongst yourselves, agree, disagree, etc., and have like a good conversation instead of this like kind of top-down control. So on both of those, with the practical and like an ideological, I really like this idea. But I actually also have the feeling that it doesn't matter. That maybe it's going through, I don't know. I don't know if this is a genuine process of seeking input from the commissions, or if it's kind of like more like, here you go, this is what's happening. I don't know.
No, the whole, it is genuine, please understand that, there is nothing else that's like. Written that's, a draft report that's going to council or anything like that at this point. Just
Sure.
thinking of it.
Sure.
Commissioner Furman and then SD agreement. And
Kelly, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said. I think it was important. Could you?
This is an information gathering process. That's it. There's nothing else that's at play.
Okay, well, that leads to my question. Thank you. It says proposed commission task process. Who has proposed this?
So this is coming from, the council subcommittee on commissions that as they were going through all of the process to look at, over the past year. These were things that they were hearing.
Was there some particular event or problem that after all these years of commissions, suddenly?
There wasn't one. This
Culmination.
yeah, it's a culmination of,
Concerns.
questions, concerns, frustrations that they have heard across several years.
Okay,
From who?
Well,
okay, that.
Commissions,
I,
council, staff, it's not just staff.
can I maybe?
I really would like to genuinely know a little bit more about the context or background.
Yeah, let me, I was just,
Yeah, that's it.
so, I appreciate it, Commissioner Roberts Meltzer, bringing up some of the history there, because that was one of the things that I was gonna bring up later on in the discussion, that, at least in part, this process was initiated by a number of concerned residents and commission members and commission leaders. I was one of the signatories of that open letter at the time, reaching out to the city council about concerns about just, public engagement in the policy development process for the city council. A concern, that there was not, kind of to the point that you just brought up, earlier, that there was, that there was maybe a lack in genuineness of the sort of, outreach to folks who were not a part of the city council in developing, policy here in the city of Davis. And outreach or a plea to, in some respect to the council to figure out what ways we could re-examine the commission structure and processes and dynamics to make that process more open and more accommodating to public input.
When was that written?
That was well over a year ago.
But not,
Yeah, right.
not more than 3.
Certainly, yeah, right.
Somewhere.
I'll just have to say that I was concerned that, and I think it's been brought up in different ways in this conversation tonight, that in large part, this was initiated by people being concerned that there was already too tight of a hold on public discourse in the policy development process. And then I feel like what was produced from the council subcommittee in terms of the commission merger proposal, and then some of the things that have followed, seems to go in the opposite direction of what the concerns and suggestions were from folks in the community, like I said, over a year ago. And so that's at least, like I said, or like Kelly said, excuse me, this is a long brewing process, but at least for my examination, one of the sort of flash points that really sort of jump-started this, particularly the council subcommittee, was that letter that was sent to the council from a number of either former or current commission leaders.
I'm wondering what, if anything specific, we are expected to do with this tonight? Is there an urgency? I'm thinking that we could be more focused and possibly more productive on this issue if we did it at a meeting when Gloria could be with us, and we could direct our questions at her, and she could represent the council in explaining this a little better. But if it's something that needs to be dealt with tonight, what is the question you're asking us to answer?
So,
Do we want to change things, and if so, how?
we are taking this to all commissions in the month of September, so this is the chance to talk about it. It's not meant to be a months-long conversation on this piece. What I've heard from this group is concern about this being, too tight of a grasp and too bureaucratic. I think those, if I'm summarizing your conversation, your comments, what?
I'm assuming it's nothing else.
That would be bureaucratic. I did hear a comment that you made, Dylan, about the process that this commission has used, or that you have used, that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you feel has worked okay.
Right, I don't want to represent, I know we have a couple other
Yeah.
former vice chairs and chairs here, but yeah, I feel like for me, it's worked well.
So one thought is if you have a suggestion of this process that you use works, maybe that's what you want to say, back to the council or back to the subcommittee, that, you would recommend doing something like what has been done. Maybe you want to just have your individual comments go forward, that's fine. Or maybe you want to take a specific stance as a commission that you, I'm guessing, would not like, the process that's been put before you because it's to all the things I just said. So Dawn, I can't tell the commission how you want to respond, but those are a couple of different paths or different options.
So yeah, I'll have a motion after everyone's comments, but then Commissioner Escamilla Greenwald and then Wilson.
I wanted to also thank you for the comments, Elaine Roberts Messer. The purpose of commissions is we're advisory to the council. That's what we are. And then they either vote up or down or modify our recommendations. They may not always like what we recommend, and that's okay. I mean, that's part of the democratic process, right? But we don't just come up with these things. We gather them from members of the public who share those ideas with us, and we bring them forth. I'll use facial recognition, the chief said, we're not, we haven't shown interest in that. Why would you guys bring it forth? Are you seeking a problem or the answer to a problem that doesn't exist? And we said, no, we understand, respect your opinion. It's just that we've seen this happen in other communities, and community members have brought this issue forward to us. Members of the LGBTQ community, people of color, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was important to bring it forth. And so that's just one example. I think that, what Robert mentioned too, that's, with regards to the city attorney, wow, very wrong on that issue. But, I think it would, has already been mentioned, if anything, it seems like it adds more time and more complexity to just simply bringing issues forward, and either they support them or they don't, that's okay. So I don't know when you're ready, I'd like to make a motion, but I mean, we still have some discussion, I think, but I'd like to make a motion when you're ready.
Okay, just very quickly, and I actually have a question. So at the 5150 that you guys were talking about, was there an expense to have that done? And if there is an expense or staff time, who approves those now anyway?
So with the 5150, you're talking about the auditors.
Right.
So that would, yes, there's an expense. We have a contract with OIR Group to do work for us. One of those things may be audits. So
that would be an additional cost or included?
it's included.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, they bill us for time and materials. It would be, up to a certain level, it would be.
But let's pretend it was an additional cost
If it was an additional cost,
or a great staff commitment of time.
how does that work?
Yeah, thank you.
Depending on the additional, so if it's staff time, that goes to the city manager and he determines how those staff resources are allocated. He of course does that in collaboration and communication with, council.
So that
members.
could be denied.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it is an additional cost above a certain amount, so let's say, this group wanted, or the auditor wanted to do something, that was gonna be over a $50,000 amount. That has to go by our own rules to the council for approval. So most things that a commission would ask for would be underneath that threshold, I would assume. And those would generally be, underneath the purview of the city manager.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So, given the fact that on the whole, our group has liked our process of setting up, and you're an integral part of setting up the agenda with us, could there not be a sheet made up that had certain criteria like cost greater than your 50,000 or needing staff time greater than so many hours? That when you're talking to us about an agenda, would flag it to go to somebody else, but otherwise not have.
So yes, certainly, mentally, that's what I'm doing you know. with
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
conversations Anyway,
That's
Right.
right, that's what I'm
I
thinking.
don't, I can't speak for other staff liaisons and other commissions, but, you know, those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about. Is this in your purview? What's this gonna cost? How can, you know, how can we?
That's
do
my
it or-
feeling from when we've had meetings, that that's gone on and it hasn't had to move another step, but it would be, that seems to me a faster thing and not have so many things move forward to have to get permission for. If you had a criteria that allowed that discussion to take place when.
Kelly knows what to tell us.
No, I mean, I don't think you've had to say, we've been able to discuss it, and we go, you have, I said, oh, yeah, you never told us. No, that's,
Other questions or thoughts on this to share? All right, so I've only halfway written it, but we'll go with the motion that I have written so far, or if folks want to make an edit. So I would move that Davis Police Accountability Commission recommends that the commission continue formulating its agendas through discussion between the chair, vice chair, and staff liaison. That the commission further recommends that other commissions explore this similar process or a similar process.
Second,
Any further discussion?
I would stop at telling them to explore our process.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
if they have things that work, they should just continue. What works for them, but that we would not be in favor of having this be put on every commission.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have general agreement to that?
there is a part of me that would be very interested in understanding what would be the line in which they felt there should be further discussion on, you know, we get that when we talk, but it would be nice to have something concrete, so everybody was sort of working on the same page, and I don't know that we need that in the motion, but I can understand the need to not have wide variation between how different groups kind of operate. And I think it could contribute to a little more consensus if there was something that showed that groups have the ability to do it internally, but if it met these four conditions, then it did need to have the liaison in, and then it might need to go.
I don't like disagree with that. My only thing is I don't know if my imagination is powerful enough to capture all of the possibilities there.
Or there's not up to us.
No, I mean, I'm fine with saying we want to continue.
Okay, I see.
But what I'm saying is there is this part of me that thinks it would be helpful.
To have a
And
standardized.
maybe we could have Kelly bring that back as something we're saying. We would suggest that in looking at this again, that maybe they come up with that approach for people rather than this.
I just want to get some more feedback or just make sure that we that people are on the same page about scrapping the recommending to other commissions that they utilize our agenda process. We're all.
No, I agree.
Okay, good, okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I like what you're saying, but if they had a problem with it, they tell us. So I don't think we need to,
What do you mean?
well, if I understand correctly, you're saying, you know, to show good faith and good effort, find out what are the, I don't want to say the word,
Criteria.
criteria, again, our requirements, criteria that they would want us to adhere to or want us to meet. And if it wasn't that, then most likely it would be brought back to be modified, is that no?
No,
Okay.
no, what I'm saying is, my understanding from Kelly is that's how she operates.
Okay.
She's comfortable in working with us and telling us if it's not in our scope or it's
Okay.
too much or too much. Other staff people may not be that comfortable and not be as collaborative. So if everybody had an objective thing of,
Mhm.
if these things are present, and we want to do that, we have to take it a little step further and bring in the liaison as part of the discussion before we approve it.
Oh, okay.
But not, it would let us have much more leeway on, because most of what we do wouldn't hit any of that stuff that they would put that.
What I think I hear you're saying then is you're saying that you would like Kelly as a recommendation to take that forward, but that doesn't fit in the
Right.
resolution.
Right. That could be one way of layering it a little more evenly so people knew what they were talking about and not have every little thing go back to the counselor or to the liaison. But everybody be seeing the same thing if they're that's all. But no, I'm not changing the rest of that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I just want, I wanted to, be, clear. So any further discussion on that, just to reread, that the Davis Police Accountability Commission recommends that the commission continue formulating its agendas through discussion between the chair, vice chair, and staff liaison.
Should we also include something about consulting with the council liaison in our agenda?
I would only know that.
I mean, I never
been
been
part of the process.
I never, when I was chair, we never did.
And we had no point in the 3 years that I've been doing it
I
there.
don't think we've ever had anything that we needed to, and that's what I'm saying, the level that, where that might be necessary is greater than something I think we've done. We've
Mhm.
not asked for a
Mhm.
large amount of money or a huge amount more staff time or whatever, I mean, so that's all.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Kelly, have we ever pushed the limit?
So I'm not gonna answer that.
We tried, no.
So just so that you know, what I will do normally is if there's something, a new project, or something that comes up and the council liaison, or previously there were two council liaisons are here. I would follow up with them, just, on the side, hey, they talked about this last night, here's what came up, blah, 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 here's what they're looking to do. Not a formal check-in, I guess, but here's what you missed. I would assume that if there was a concern at that point in time, they would raise it, somebody would say something. But, again, that's just informal, and I can't speak to whether or not that happens, across the board. I know that there are certain commissions where the council liaison is active and, attends other commissions that maybe don't have quite the presence.
So my sense of this is they're trying to standardize it. What I'm saying is, we think it could be done in a little less onerous fashion.
Right.
At least for our needs and.
Well, and
circumstances.
possibly for others
Yeah.
either, and it would empower the staff liaison to say, if this happens, then I do need to take it a little farther to have deeper discussion.
Further, discussion? Although, I'm sorry, all those in favor, please say aye. All those-
Second.
I think, yes, Cecilia sections. Yes. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Anything further on this item?
But Dylan, if you have that written down somewhere in your screen. I have it.
If you can
but
give me
here's-
my chicken scratch, huh?
Yeah, more eloquent than I-
Okay, I'm sorry, no, not 8A, subcommittee, am I on the right place? Yeah, subcommittee updates. So a committee consisting of Commissioner Escabia Greenwald, Commissioner Griswold, and Commissioner Wilson. I don't know how I just noticed your name has 2 L's. I was like, so yeah, they were asked, at our last meeting, as I think I noted earlier in our agenda when I was talking about our meeting with the. Right, yes, I did too. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Do one of y'all want to report out on?
I'll
Oh,
say we haven't met,
Okay.
and I do recall at the last meeting, and I know it was in our notes or taken at the last meeting, that we haven't met and we kind of were saying maybe it's not something we need to have like this subcommittee on. But I mean, we approved the notes taken, and there is a long list in there. So I'm not sure that there's more the subcommittee is planning to do besides, we already kind of did that with the whole commission.
Yeah.
Chelsea, have you completed your work as a?
Yeah, let's just. 8+.
And actually, this interview with the police officer candidates to me was really complete and had a ton of information.
Oh, my goodness, right?
It was very good, but I did want to point out the one thing I didn't see in there, when they were looking at attributes and all their objective stuff, the term de-escalation was never in anything. And, again, they did a lot on communications and, social interactions, but when I went to the specific parts, subparts under it.
Hmm.
I never saw that word, and I think that is a skill we would want somehow assessed, so I don't know if it's in our thing. The first one hasn't been revised since 2009. The first one was 2022. But the first one is, so they probably weren't even talking much about the escalation in the law enforcement at that time, in interviewing, but
Crisis intervention skills, is that mentioned?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back to it
I
again.
believe those are certainly mentioned in our
Yeah,
list.
yeah, because I would put the escalation there.
Right, but I just would want to make sure that we would bring up the fact that we didn't see that in their things, and it is something we find really important.
Do we feel like you mentioned, that, you know, we have a long list of things that we had sort of brought up as ideas at the last, meetings.
No, that's the
Okay.
property.
But do we feel like that list is complete? Not just in terms that it has a lot of things on it, but that we, you know, feel like those are the things that we definitely want to be on there. There's nothing beyond what Mary just brought up. If there isn't anything that's missing.
And again, I think they're using the word diffusing. Because in here, they talk about skill in diffusing and managing crisis situations. Is diffusing different to decel?
They probably mean the same, like the person who wrote that probably meant the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I recall.
Right, they're not synonyms, but.
Here, I can read what's in, it's at 7A from, the minutes from our meeting on July 1st. Okay, at large input from the commission included the following, at large input, excuse me. Public participation in the hiring process is important. Suggestion to remove voice stress analysis from the hiring process. Would like to see more diversity in hiring. Would like to see recruitment of officers who have already had training in the area of community policing, and communicating with members of the public. Question of what communities have community groups or others participated? Oh, what communities have community groups or others participate in hiring process? I'm not totally. Consider different lists for lateral hires versus new candidates, and then potential attributes for lateral candidates. A demonstrated capacity to intervene positively in, and then it says, for example, in a situation such as when the police killed George Floyd. Demonstrated record of de-escalation and the ability to de-escalate. Demonstrated commitment to policing that is racially just. Commitment to prioritizing a nonviolent response. Understanding of common issues faced by the homeless population. Understanding of mental health needs and issues. And then question that we'd have would be, what does the police department currently look for? And a suggestion to look at the post courses for training to get ideas for attributes. Learning domain 3, principles of community and de-escalation, or post use of force standards and guidelines, such as legal obligations to intervene. I mean, that to me covers a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then these notes also say that Commissioner Wilson has started research for the subcommittee.
I haven't done anything with it since we haven't met, but I did.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so,
I have a question too, just that is related to this sort of. So having been new on this commission, how, is there a chair when we have subcommittees like this? Does somebody know? So it just gets together, okay?
it would be, I was sort of thought about this in the past that we should have like a convener.
I think, yeah.
I think it needs,
Because again, I wasn't sure, I was waiting,
Mhm.
since I was an alternate, waiting for somebody
Right,
to
yeah,
do something, but I could have done something.
a higher ranked official.
And I'm always available to poke or prod if, to do what the subcommittee wants to do, but if you need Zoom meeting set up, or if you need a little push,
Too much of larger commission time as a member of that subcommittee, I feel like the work I plan to do and contribute is kind of done in this list. I don't know if the two of you have different thoughts or want us to meet further. I'm sorry, I'm not-
For me, it's
That's
the
okay.
list. Yeah, it's on the list. I mean,
I'm happy.
Okay.
And I'd be more than willing to do anything if anybody wants to do it.
So if you're comfortable with it, then I can just take it out of the minutes and put it in a little memo or something like that, send it to the police department. I would send it to the police chief and the deputy chief. Unless there's something different to happen.
That sounds good.
Would you be able to include in that the beginning part that Elizabeth was reading off about us wanting sort of more public participation in the hiring process? It wasn't necessarily like an attribute,
That was
but
one, it was one of the bullets.
you're right,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it says at large, well, the input from the commission included the following, and the very first bullet is public participation in
Yeah.
the hiring process.
So you'll include all that? Okay, cool.
And so, and I think also, I mean, obviously, Kelly, you had said in the context that these were, recommendations from the auditors that they solicited this. Well, that's funny how that fits onto this flow chart. I don't know, but when the auditors, but kind of asked us to do this, or what their recommendations were that we come up with a list of desirable qualities. And then her second recommendation for us was to have the hires potentially meet with this commission, and or community representatives. So that was where this was coming.
That is interesting, that it doesn't fit on there, does it?
Yeah, well, most commissions don't have an independent police.
Right.
Okay, so what I will do then, is put together a little memo with a little bit of context around what I'm sending over, and then I will take the stuff from the July 1st minutes, that section, and just pop it in the memo.
Thank you.
That sounds perfect. Is that what you're thinking? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
And then that subcommittee concludes. Great.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
All right, right, yes. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Anything further on this? Okay, long range, we talked about it,
Did you get a public comment?
oh, I guess I did not. Public comment?
So good.
Thank you.
John, listening.
Long range?
Yeah, well, I just wanted, so now that we have a new commissioner that's moved from alternate to full commissioner, we now have a vacancy, right? So if people who are present, or people know somebody, or people that are present in the audience are interested in applying to the commission, they may do so by just getting an application from you, right, Kelly, or going to the website?
You can go, easiest thing to do is to go online. Is to go online and, get the thing there, but, you can call the city clerk's office or city manager's office and we can get you to the right place if anybody's interested.
And you
I
know
do
one,
not-
two commissioners.
And I do not know, Dylan had asked this earlier, I do not know, what the schedule will be for additional recruitments. The council just sort of topped everything off.
Is there a wait list for this
Yeah.
commission?
I'd have to go and look,
Okay.
but the city clerk will keep, everything on file for up to 2 years. And every time we do another
You do it,
recruitment,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, they drop all that too.
well, we'll reach out and say,
Oh,
hey, you
still-
still have your application on file, are you still interested? And are you still interested in the same commissions
Right.
that you originally applied
Okay.
for? And we get a variety of different.
This reminds me, I guess this might have to be a future thing, but I think one of the things that the city should definitely consider taking input on in terms of the commission situation is that dang application. All of us had to fill it out who were sitting up here, right? And I don't know if y'all were in a different place. I felt like the application was super intimidating. I actually delayed putting in my application because I had a whole bunch of imposter syndrome of like, wow, just asking all of this stuff, it makes it seem like I need to be a Rhodes Scholar to be a Davis commissioner. And so, no, I'm not. In case you have not heard yet. But, finding a way for the commission application to be a little bit less of a 50-foot skyscraper, I think would be helpful in getting more people to apply.
You know, it's, I don't want to get too far into the topic, but, I check and see the last time it was changed, because that was one of the changes that came about where they were trying to streamline it and make it less.
So yeah, it may be changed since 2018 when I
But
originally.
I honestly don't remember what year that
Yeah.
was. Because it was actually something that, Commission Cecilia might be familiar with,
Mhm.
Relations Commission had brought up. And that this might be actually discouraging
Mm.
people
Yeah.
from applying because they might feel like
Oh,
they're not good.
Right,
Yeah.
Just came to my mind as we
No,
were
it's a
talking
good
about.
point, it's a good point.
Other long-range items, so with regard to what we brought up in, announcements earlier, I think, certainly Kelly, something that, I think as you noted, examines how, DPD is gonna respond to how the city of Davis government is gonna respond to this, change in sort of case law, I think would be helpful, just so that we have an awareness and understanding of that, so I can, more effectively respond to the amount of questions that I mentioned that, people are asking
Grants-
about.
You're talking about grants pass, right?
Yes, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Right.
that I've got my SCOTUS and Ninth Circuit
Right.
appeals and everything else straight in my head.
Right.
Yes.
Grants
Yes,
pass.
yes.
Yes.
Just really quickly, 2024 has been updated and it's much easier.
Okay, great. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you,
All
thank
right.
you.
Things do move along. But yeah, the rules, where exactly the line is, I think would be helpful. And then particularly, you mentioned sort of maybe reaching out to, Ms. Bailey, because again, one of the larger concerns that I heard from folks is like, hey, didn't we do all this, reforming our public safety system? Isn't it supposed to be sort of on someone else's plate, at least in terms of first, sort of interaction? And so, review of all of that, discussion of all that, I think would be a good for the next.
I'd like to get an update on concealed carry permits. Last year, this is after Bruin, another Supreme Court, decision a couple of years ago, where most states, let's see, in this state, we are I think currently the law is still that, we are a may permit as opposed to shall permit.
But is that in
And-
counties?
I think so.
What?
My understanding was that the chief, was that previously it could have been a sheriff's department or PD
Right,
who
now
issued the
the
permits, but now it's
The
just.
chief is doing it.
Right.
We do it now.
Yeah.
Because the
I think that
sheriff
the
told
maybe-
them that he wanted the cities to do
Oh,
Right.
that. Was my understanding.
Right, you may know better.
Well, I think he told us that
Right,
at some
yeah.
point. But the law that the legislature attempted to put into place failed. And so the law, I'd like to get an update about whether the law has changed about concealed carry permits and how, if the number of persons in the city of Davis who have concealed permits has changed, and if their process has changed.
I would similarly be interested in the answers of those questions.
So I'm assuming that both of those items, the homelessness issue and then the concealed carry issue, have the, support of the majority of the council to put on.
Other, future agenda items.
Well, I'm looking at the last page of our agenda packet, because it has some ideas that have been put out there in the past. Artificial intelligence overview, Los Angeles Police Department, other community nonviolent calls for service, moving violation ticket fees being determined by income,
That was mine.
traffic enforcement, racial disparity on traffic stops, whether body cams play a role in restorative justice, an update on the RIPA, the racially identified,
It's police stops.
yeah, right, I was just trying to do that. The dashboard update, and then crisis now and focus on their models.
Dashboard update. That was something that was in the works, and I think we go to get an update on.
There was, Mary, I don't know if you remember the name, but there was couple of years ago, we had someone from the district attorney's office come and give us a review of I don't know why I'm blanking on it now, but the information portal. Now,
Yellow Connect or something.
yeah, something to that effect. Now, folks know about my sort of feelings about our prosecutorial system, so I don't know if also I felt like that was a really long presentation.
Well, it was captured by someone. It wasn't really a presentation about that. It was sort of became more of a discussion about what the DA does.
Indeed, yeah,
And
yeah.
so to get something about the portal and what some of the.
But yeah, but something that might be like a document rather than a person coming here, yeah, like this is Davis and and that's that could be complicated sometimes.
You know, any of us can go on, pull something off.
Right.
We just have to spend the time to do it.
Right, yes.
That sounds like, I'd rather see these other things first.
Yeah. Mhm. Other long range items or future agenda items, public comment on future agenda items? All right,
Take things off of the list.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So for instance, the LA police, that was the LA Police Union that put out, it was a statement about what they were going to do around non-violent stops. It had to do with traffic stops. I don't think we need to have that on there anymore.
was that your suggestion?
Don't need.
Pardon?
Was that your suggestion?
No,
Oh, dude, this,
my suggestion was to get rid of it.
no, I mean, but does anybody, because they might give us a little bit of meat on the bones as to why that's on.
I can't remember, but it came up in discussion at some point.
I don't think a lot of people
Somebody,
pushed out enough to be in.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, since nobody's fighting for it, it seems like it's off the list. Anything else that we wanna, scratch?
The RIPA data is, I mean, the thing is, that the RIPA data comes out every year. And including now Davis has RIPA data. And that sort of merges with this dashboard notion, so I'm not sure we need. What did it say about?
You know,
And it said RIPA dashboard update.
I think our main thing for the RIPA data was that, hey, what are we doing with the information?
Right.
Because I think a part of it is, hey, we're supposed to be utilizing this to make some educated
All right,
decisions.
so we'll just leave it on the RIPA dashboard, that's fine.
Anything else to scratch?
Well, I think this notion of crisis now co-responder models update is kind of some of the stuff we're gonna talk about with the outreach, so maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. Crisis now or crisis maybe
Sometime.
Crisis.
I guess the best thing I can say is that it's been evolving. And so, I'm not sure there's anything right now to come and an update on, but I'm hoping that sometime we'll get to a place where we've got a thing.
And I think what might be more crucial is the co-responder sort of situation, and that wouldn't need to be someone comes here or we need the 17-page document, but just, I think some of our concerns was, hey, this is during business hours. People's mental health crises are not only limited to business hours. And so I think that was a large part of why we were advocating for there to be an expansion from 1 clinician to 2. And sort of, right. And so an update as to where we are with that. What is the schedule the same? Again, it wouldn't have to be something really big.
It might be helpful to get some data around that too, like how many calls have been, have the call pattern changed? Things like that. I don't know if the department reports that on an annual basis. How many calls involving?
They had, it started with a dashboard that they had shown us that we had wanted to be involved as they got the dashboard going.
Right.
But we've never gotten to know whether they ever got to the point of having.
Right, we don't have any periodic or regular things that are sort
Yeah.
of in the.
Yeah, because we had wanted to participate because they were more process than outcomes, remember?
Yeah.
And you wanted to get a few outcomes in there
That's
instead of
right.
just processes.
With the 2 clinicians, they are technically county employees. So
Right.
I actually don't know
There's
if
some.
the county has a report. If we have one, I haven't seen it.
But the
that would be-
department should, well, let me put it this way. I would imagine that a department might want to know how many times their officers called for assistance from the co-respondent. That's.
Yeah.
Seems like an interesting statistic.
It's an interesting question. I just don't have the answer, but find out if there is one.
Well, I think that's vital for us to know. I thought we had some kind of ongoing understanding that records were being kept, but, since we doubt it, I don't need to suggest one way or the other. We don't know. Say, so, perhaps we could make it an agenda item. And it's now been, what, a year since the chief has attended one of our meetings once again. So why don't we get him here and ask him to bring that information in?
Also, well,
Or he could send.
there we go.
His deputy.
Or like anyone
Five-
from the
five
department.
people.
We've had
Yeah.
Lieutenant Waltz come and
Yeah.
sort of review the training
Training
process.
stuff, right,
Yeah. Other,
We should have someone here with numbers and anecdotes. You know, seriously, I don't mean it as a joke. We should have some, maybe examples would be a better word than anecdote. They should be truthful, for sure. So examples would be better vocabulary. But, yeah, this is what we were formed to do in the first place. And we really haven't kept up with it. I don't think it's dereliction on our part. We haven't had the data, but, by now, there should be 5 years of, accumulated information on this very, issue.
other further requests or items? All right, taking it to adjournment. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you for coming.
I guess I'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
And it's wonderful. because-
Sorry for my snark.
Good night, Steven.
Thanks. Good night.
For hanging in there with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great, that's good.